It's Wednesday. You know what that means. That's right, episode 327 of hashtag AskGSM, baby. I'm Graham GSM Matthews for Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. Hope you guys are doing well. A very exciting week. I would say March is off to a strong start. We had the Revolution pay-per-view from AEW on Saturday. I could not watch it live. I was at the Evolve show, actually, in New York. We had a fun time at it. Alexis and I did. The organization was absolutely atrocious. I'll probably go more in depth with this probably tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, but let me just say outright, it was a fucking nightmare. But speaking of nightmares, it was a dream come true. That was a terrible segue. Meeting Rhea Ripley that same day. I've always been a big fan of hers. She's one of Alexis's favorites, so that was a really cool moment. Got to meet Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa. Really cool night out at Evolve on Saturday. We will be at the big event on this Saturday. Very busy back-to-back weeks, but we will be back in New York City this Saturday for the big event. A lot of top-tier names that we plan on meeting, and all the pictures will be available on the Twitters, the Facebooks, you know the drill. But before then, we have episode 327 of hashtag AskGSM coming your way here today. Let's get right into it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. First question comes from FD from Facebook. Their first question was, considering most world champions in major wrestling promotions in America, except for Impact and to a certain extent AEW, right before Jon Moxley defeated Chris Jericho to win the AEW World Championship, are considered to be quite old. Goldberg is 53, Brock Lesnar is 52, and Chris Jericho is 49. Do you agree that the age of the wrestler is one of the main factors in determining whether a company has a strong world champion or not, and why? I don't know if it's one of the main factors. The issue with it with WWE, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, AEW's excused from this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Jericho's 49. But at the same time, though, Chris Jericho, up until he lost the championship on Saturday, I mean, Dynamite hasn't even happened yet, so this may not affect anything. But for those 6 months that Jericho was AEW World Champion, he was the best part about that show. He was doing the best work, I would argue, of his entire career as the AEW World Champion. As a character, on the mic, in the ring, he's had some of the best matches he's had in forever, even better than the matches he was having in WWE even a couple of years ago when he came back for that awesome run for the whole list thing and all that other stuff. He was having better matches. He's been having better matches now than he was even then. So Jericho, yeah, he's 49, turning 50 this year, but the guy was the not saving grace, that's to say that the rest of AEW is a shit show, but he was the crown jewel of that promotion for as long as he was the world champion. He got people over in various matches. He had great matches. It was the right time to take the title off of him, and I would argue, hey, you probably could have kept the belt on him for a couple of more months before dropping it to an Omega or a Page, both of whom I already know he's beaten, but it would have made for a cool story because him and Omega still have that rubber match at some point to go back to. Page is a lot more over now than he was 6 months ago, so it would have made sense if he was the one to beat Jericho for that championship. But nonetheless, though, Jericho I kind of excuse from that because AEW is just starting up, and hey, I agree that when Jericho was first, and someone else asked about this a little later on, like what's the difference between Goldberg being the Universal Champion and Jericho being the AEW Champion? Listen, I had my gripes as well. I had my reservations. I had my fears about Jericho, my own opinion about Jericho becoming the first ever inaugural AEW World Champion. I recall a conversation that I had with RJ, actually, as we were leaving the Double or Nothing show about a year ago in Vegas, saying, dude, I can't believe they're about to put their top championship on Jericho. Like, listen, I love Jericho, but I feel like it sends the wrong message that their first ever champion of this first ever all-new promotion is a guy that's been around for 20 years. But it turned out to be the best thing they could have ever done. Because if they put that belt on Page, it would have fucking killed the guy, and it would have killed the show and the promotion. Maybe not killed them, but it would not have done them any favors. Page was not ready for that spot yet. I'm not really sure who else would have been ready for that spot. I would have maybe said Omega, but I think Jericho ended up being the best possible person for that spot. So now it means more when Omega eventually wins it down the road. Jericho ended up being perfect in the role. And hey, maybe Goldberg will go out there and have the greatest Universal Championship reign of all time. And that's not really saying much because we haven't really had many. I feel like that championship is cursed because Balor got hurt when he won it. Owens' reign, yeah, it lasted a long time, but he really was not booked to look like a threat ever during the 7 or 8 months that he was champion for. Goldberg held it for a month. Brock was champion for a year and a half, but he was never around. So the championship really meant nothing at that point. Roman held it for a month or two, then he got sick, had to vacate it. Brock was champion again. That was a nothing reign. He held it for a couple months before dropping it to Rollins, and neither of his reigns were really all that remarkable. Kind of bogged down by the bad booking and bad character development, stuff like that. Brock held it for another cup of coffee this past summer. Bray Wyatt held it for a little while. He had a decent reign. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a flop. His matches weren't amazing, but it was far from a bad reign. And now Goldberg's the champion again. Goldberg is not an active competitor. He will not be on every show. As far as I know, going into WrestleMania, I feel like if he was going to be on SmackDown this week, they would have already said so, He's not a guy that you can really rely on for a great match. Now, I know Bray Wyatt is the same thing, but Goldberg, been there, done that. And with WWE, it illustrates that they can't create new stars. How many times do I have to say this? AEW, I have my issues with them as well, and, certain people they should be focusing more on and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, it feels like they're creating new stars. They have established people like Cody, Jericho, Moxley, the new AEW World Champion. But then you have people kind of making their way through the ranks. And Omega's a star, but he's not established here in America. He is with the AEW audience, but he's not a household name by any means. And he also has not really been ripping it up in AEW the way that people imagined that he would when he signed with them a year ago, but he has been recently, which is cool. Between Revolution, that awesome Iron Man match a week ago, that is probably my favorite AEW match today, if not the tag team match from 3 days later at the pay-per-view at Revolution with him and Paige versus the Young Bucks. I thought that was absolutely amazing, and I'll talk more about that later. Omega's a guy they're building up. Paige is catching fire right now. Darby Allin's getting over. MJF is getting over. He beat Cody on Saturday. They're creating new stars. Nyla Rose, say what you will, and she's not good in the ring, but at least they're trying to get her over. Chris Statlander's a completely fresh face. They're not relying on other women's wrestlers from WWE. And yeah, you can pick and choose a few here and there. And they might be bringing in Matt Hardy and Luke Harper, both former WWE guys, but they're not solely looking to WWE. I was thinking about this the other day, but if they bring in everyone who they, think they're going to be bringing in, or everyone that we think they will be bringing in, Matt Hardy and Luke Harper kind of fulfill that WWE quota in the Revival if they come in the next couple months. I don't think that's going to be until the summer, if at the earliest, if not later on this year. But I feel like they will be AEW bound eventually. Hardy and then Harper, they teased it today on their Twitter. I think that's only inevitable. And then the Revival kind of fulfills that WWE quota. Then you have Lance Archer coming on over from New Japan. You have reportedly Brian Cage at some point, which I don't think it's signed, sealed, and delivered, but I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire, and he will probably end up there eventually. He's coming on over from Impact. And then you have Jeff Cobb from Ring of Honor in New Japan as well. He's been a household name over in Ring of Honor for a little while now, former Ring of Honor World Television Champion. He's still making appearances from that promotion. And now he's he's not in AEW, but he's been making a few appearances, and reportedly they offered him a deal to continue working for New Japan. I don't know about Ring of Honor, probably not. I would love for AEW and Ring of Honor to work together. This doesn't appear to be in the cards right now. Hopefully it will be at some point. But they're kind of picking and choosing from all the different promotions elsewhere, and Darby Allin's a guy that wasn't in any of those promotions. He was in an Evolve. I think he was in Evolve for a little while, maybe about a year or two ago. That's where people know him from. I had never heard of the guy until AEW, and he's already gotten over as a star, on the rise. He's like their version of Jeff Hardy, is probably the best way to put it. So, they're at least creating new stars. They are with Drew, which is great on the Raw side. It's not really a Raw problem. It's more of a SmackDown issue. SmackDown doesn't really feel like it has anyone that screams special to me. And Roman Reigns, yeah, he's a star, but they've already started and stopped his push so many times. They've already tried with him so many times that I don't feel like this reign will be any different than any of the other reigns he's had prior, he had the cancer, then he came back and he got cheered more. I feel like still people will boo him when he wins that championship at WrestleMania. Maybe not at WrestleMania, but soon after, like the Raw or SmackDown after Mania, he may get booed, depending on who he's paired up against. If it's The Fiend, he probably will be booed. Because that feud's inevitable too. It may not be happening at WrestleMania, but it will definitely be happening at some point. So anyway, they have Roman. Goldberg isn't really around. Cena's not really around. Braun does not feel like a star at all to me. Yeah, he's the Intercontinental Champion, but they've, again, made him completely neutered him over the last 3 or 4 years to the point where I just don't really care about him nearly as much as I did a few years ago. Shinsuke Nakamura, just hang it up, dude. You're a fucking loser. I can't even remember the last time he won a singles televised match on WWE TV. Who else do they even have on the SmackDown side? Daniel Bryan, and he's kind of, he's great. He's still popular. He's not a guy to build around because he's kind of at the tail end of his career. Maybe not retiring in a couple of years, but he won't be wrestling for the next 10, 15 years, I don't think. So anyway, yeah, that's more of a SmackDown issue in my opinion. I don't really think age is a main factor. It's not that, Goldberg's 53. It's the fact that the guy's been around for 20 years and they have other people that could be building around. Jericho is doing the best work of his career right now. Is this the best work of Goldberg's career? I would argue not, because that Bray Wyatt match kind of sort of sucked for the time that we got from him. That finish was terrible. So I'm going to say no to that, fam. Brock Lesnar, he's more active now than he was before, but again, you can't keep putting the belts on the part-timers. Jericho's on every fucking show they put on. So to even compare the two is ridiculous. Yeah, he's older than Brock by 7 years. And Jericho even said he got it on Twitter. He's like, oh, yeah, I understand why they did it, but why, though? I feel like we've already seen this song and dance so many times. Could you imagine 10 years ago, in 08, 09, 2010, them putting the belt still on The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin? Not once or twice. I know The Rock held the championship for a month or two in early 2013. I'm talking about multiple times. Brock and Goldberg, between the two, have held 6 or 7 world championships in the last number of years. That's fucking ridiculous. How are they winning the world championship that many times? And they have the star power, they just refuse to focus on it. They refuse to build up new stars. Could you imagine Stone Cold Steve Austin, if he chose to wrestle, being a multi-time WWE champion between 2005 and 2010? Absolutely not. Now, yeah, they had a different issue back then. It was the same people on top. Triple H, John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Edge, so on and so forth. They didn't really create many new stars then, and they had the chance with people like Drew and Sheamus, and yeah, Sheamus is still here, and, Drew is back, and Swagger was one of those people they tried to get over, it didn't work. Ryback was one of those people they tried to get over, and it could have worked, but it didn't. You could just go on and on and on and on, and they never really built around anyone aside from those core few, and they got over some other people like Daniel Bryan in the years that followed. Del Rio didn't really pan out, among others. And now it's catching up with them because now they're having to rely no longer on those people. They're not even putting the belt. I mean, they did put the belt on Triple H a couple of years ago, but they're not even putting the belt on those people anymore. It's all about people from 20 years ago. How unbelievable is that? So it's definitely an issue. Age is a concern, but it's not one of the main factors, I would argue, because Jericho's 49, and he was one of the best things to happen to AEW ever. FD's second question, do you agree with Bray Wyatt's comment after Friday Night SmackDown last week that WWE's trying to kill characters right after a shock loss to Goldberg at Super Showdown? Also, do you agree with Christian Miracle's opinion, I have no idea who that is, that Bray Wyatt's Fiend character is not yet buried, or do you feel that his WWE Championship loss, I think you mean Universal title loss, to Goldberg is already wiped out his momentum and character altogether? Lot packed into one question here, but in regards to the Wyatt tweet that he put out during SmackDown on Friday, and I think it was in response to a tattoo artist that does tattoos for the WWE superstars, he had said on Twitter, why would you have Miz and Morrison lose one day removed from winning the tag team championship? Are they trying to kill their characters? And Wyatt simply responded with yes. Now, again, could he have been sarcastic? I don't think so. I don't really feel like that's a thing that you put out to be sarcastic. And maybe he is, and I'm just reading too much into it, but that's the whole point. We don't really know what he meant by that. He could have been, if someone accused him of being like, oh, how could you bury the company on Twitter? He could have simply said, hey, I'm kidding. But he actually may feel that way. And I wouldn't blame him if he does, because why wouldn't he? He's been buried so many times over the last 5 or 6 years. Legit buried. That John Cena loss buried his career. I know he became WWE champion after that, but it was all downhill after WrestleMania 30 because he lost to John Cena. And maybe it wouldn't have panned out anyway, but that loss did not do him any favors whatsoever. It really just sped up the process, if anything. But yeah, I do absolutely think that they are trying to kill their characters. They spend so much time putting so much effort into various people like Miz and Morrison, people like The Fiend, people like Bayley's a whole other issue. The whole heel turn doesn't really work, in my opinion. I appreciate the effort, but it's just not working. But they'll build these people up, and then they'll just neuter them at the last second. Not to the old guys, not like Miz and Morrison lost to the Rock and Roll Express or some shit, but like, why would you have Miz and Morrison lose a day after winning the tag team titles? You want people to care about the tag team. Why are they losing? Why have they lost their last 3 matches on SmackDown? That makes absolutely no sense. The Fiend, is he buried? Is he ruined? No, he's not ruined. He has a WrestleMania match with John Cena. But it definitely took away from his mystique. You know, as many other people have said. I think I heard Solomonster say this. It took a part of his mystique that he'll never get back, and I absolutely agree. That was such a dumb decision, and no one can make me think otherwise. It was fucking dumb for him to lose the championship to Goldberg a month out from WrestleMania. Maybe if they did it at WrestleMania, that would be a different thing. It would still be stupid because the match was no good. Even if you lost to John Cena at WrestleMania, I probably would still say that it was dumb. But at least that means something because it's John Cena's 17th championship, which reportedly he doesn't want to win. That's a whole other thing. But, you know, it would be a meaningful moment. And, yeah, he would lose to John Cena again. But at least he held the championship to Mania. For him to lose the title so close to Mania to a guy that's 53 years old and has no business being the Universal Champion at this point in time for a match with Roman Reigns that could exist outside of the championship picture, to me makes no sense. So yes, they try to kill Bray Wyatt with that loss. They're killing Miz and Morrison. They're killing a lot of different people on the roster, specifically SmackDown. Raw, on the Paul Heyman side of things, seems to have a better grasp on how to create stars. What they did with Brock and Drew, is what I meant to say on Monday's Raw, is exactly what they should be doing with everyone on the roster. Not everybody, but like, that's how you get over a star. That's how you get over someone as a new star, is by having them beat up someone that's established multiple times, decisively, not made to look like an idiot like Rollins was when he was getting his ass kicked by Brock every fucking week last summer, going into that SummerSlam match, which he won, which made no sense. I'm glad that he won and he took the belt back from Brock, but like, it was still stupid because he got the shit kicked out of him. He was like on his deathbed a week before, and then he beat Brock at SummerSlam. It was ass backwards booking. But what they did with Drew on Monday, I hope that's not the peak of the program, because that was one of the best things they've done yet. And it got over Drew huge. That crowd was going nuts for Drew McIntyre. And if they can replicate that and continue on with that build going into WrestleMania, they will have a star on their hands. I have never seen Brock been made to look so vulnerable before. Yeah, maybe in the Braun feud, but like, he's bigger than Brock. I know Drew's a little taller than Brock, but Brock's way more physically intimidating. So the fact that Drew could do that, hit 3 Claymore kicks and lay him out and, you know, pose with the championship is very impressive. So hopefully they can continue on that track. Anyway, I know that's well beside your question, but Bray Wyatt, Ricochet is buried. Ricochet is fucking buried. You want to talk about buried? And I don't use that term lightly. Ricochet is buried. Hang it up, dude. Hit the catering. You're done. A 90-second loss to Brock Lesnar was insanely stupid. How do they follow that up? A clean, decisive loss to the 24/7 champion Riddick Moss. It doesn't get much worse than that, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty bad. He's the definition of buried. Wyatt can still recover. I'm sure he will beat Cena at WrestleMania. But then what? Does he lose to Roman at the next pay-per-view? That's a whole other issue. But yeah, to answer your question, plain and simple, he's not buried. But it definitely hurt his momentum a lot. I thought that was really, really stupid. FD's third question, do you agree that WWE is still over-relying on veteran superstars just to please the stockholders and for profit from investors, especially looking at Super Showdown with how Goldberg was booked to become the Universal Champion, not to mention how The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar were also booked to win? And do you see this affecting the company long-term, including building up young talents and building trust towards their fans? I just got done talking about this because it kind of, harpers back to your first 2 questions. But yeah, they absolutely have an issue with creating new stars. We know they can. They absolutely can. I said this to RJ over text the other day, because I was thinking about this, like, why are Roman and Rollins and people like that not just over, but like they feel like stars. Maybe not on the level of like a John Cena or something like that, but why are they kind of in a league all of their own compared to, Bray Wyatt's up there, I guess. Not really. But what's the difference, though? They were booked to look strong throughout their entire run. I would never say that Rollins has ever been buried. Roman has never been buried. They would sometimes be booked a little questionably, but they were never buried. They went undefeated as the Shield for like 6 to 7 months. They won every match they had. If they went in there and lost that first big match at TLC 2012 to Ryback and Team Hell No, or they lost that 6-man tag team match a month out from Mania to John Cena, Sheamus, and I think it was Ryback or Randy Orton or some shit. Pretty sure it was Ryback. That match was. And then WrestleMania was Big Show, Orton, and Sheamus. It would be a different story. It would be a totally different story altogether. I guarantee would not be where they are today. They would be like fledgling mid-card talents. I think Roman Reigns, they always had that, suspicion that he would be a star, but they made Ambrose and Rollins stars too. I mean, Ambrose was always questionably booked, but he also was a star. He won many, many championships. He was very over. He also was never really below a certain level ever in that company because they were booked to look strong for as long as they were. They might be the last real stars the WWE's ever created. Because Bray Wyatt, like everyone else on that roster, I can point you to a time where they were like made to look like losers and no more special than anyone else. The Shield were special. They still are special. Even Moxley now and over in AEW. Everyone else, I cannot say the same thing for. Bray Wyatt, they have dropped the ball on God knows how many times. He's never won a fucking WrestleMania match. What does that tell you? The guy's a loser. He never wins when it matters most. Drew, they're doing a good job of, but he's been kind of back and forth over the last couple of years. Ricochet's a loser. They're doing a better job now, again, on the Raw side of building people up, but this has been an issue for years. Ryback was on the cusp of superstardom 6, 7, 8 years ago. When he went for the WWE Championship, they booked him to lose not just that first WWE title match, but the month after that, and 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 then he was just nothing. They turned him heel, no one gave a shit, and then that was it. That was it for Ryback and WWE. They took a guy that could have been special, and they fucked him up. And again, maybe he would have fizzled out anyway, but I feel like it's a lot like with Rollins, where people turned on him as a babyface, and they turned it into something cool with him as a heel, because he's like almost, he can't be buried, and it's not a Rollins thing, it's how they booked him. And Rollins is great, but he very well could have been the next Ricochet. He very well could have been in Ricochet's spot right now and having this hot start and then fizzling out because they have no interest in continuing to push him. But they continue to push him because he was a star and they booked him like a star. I don't know what's different now between now and 8 years ago. But those guys were lucky. Everyone else, not so much. So absolutely they have an issue with creating new stars. The fact that Goldberg and Brock Lesnar are the world champions going into WrestleMania is a fucking joke. And listen, Roman was going to get the belt back eventually. I have no issue with that. I don't hate Roman. I think Roman's great. SmackDown has got to get their shit together because they are not doing anyone any favors. Nakamura was the hottest thing since sliced bread 3 years ago. He could not be a bigger loser right now. Strowman has been booked to win every match for the last 2 months. Who the fuck could possibly care when it's all against the same people? So again, why the hell would I care about Braun as the Intercontinental Champion? I don't, because they already killed his character dead a couple of years ago. At least the Shield are kind of invincible at this point from a booking standpoint. Everyone else, they have very big issues in creating new stars, and that is absolutely something they need to pay attention to. I don't know if they're putting the belts on Brock and Goldberg to please investors. It's just because it's what works. It's what pops a rating. I think it was RJ who texted me that Goldberg's return to SmackDown did bigger numbers. It didn't, though. They brought in maybe 100,000 more viewers, maybe, when he first came back a couple weeks ago. It's not like when he came back, 3-4 years ago and he brought in like 4 million viewers. Now that's different. Now I get why they would put the championship on him because he was very hot back then. It's not like people are going nuts for Goldberg in 2020. And listen, I like Goldberg, but there's no reason, absolutely zero reason for the guy to be Universal Champion. And it's not a Goldberg thing. If it was Matt Hardy, I would say the same exact thing. I'm the biggest Matt Hardy fan in the world. If they made him Woken and they put the championship on the guy, I'd be like, that's a joke. I know his gimmick is similar to The Fiend and people didn't think The Fiend should have been champion. But at least Wyatt is a young guy It's a hot gimmick, and yeah, the broken Woken stuff was too. But at least Wyatt can still go, and it's a different story. Matt Hardy can barely walk. I think it's a great gimmick. It's a great mid-card thing. It's not world championship material. There's just certain people that should not be world champion. Goldberg was world champion material, not in 2020. Brock could still be viably a viable world champion, and that's great. But the issue is that they've done this shit with him so many times as the world champion that it's so predictable now that, okay, he's going to lose it to this guy or that guy or whatever. And it's the same song and dance every single year with Brock in the world championship picture at WrestleMania. He's been to the world title match at WrestleMania in 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now 2020. What the fuck? How does that happen? That's 5 years out of the last 5 years, except for 2016, and he faced Dean Ambrose that year and he won. And then the year before he won the championship at Mania, or walked into WrestleMania as champion, he beat the streak. I mean, I'm not saying Brock should be in a mid-card match at WrestleMania, which is basically what that Ambrose match was at 32. But you don't have to have the guy be in every world championship match at Mania every year. That's just overkill. Very stupid. Thomas B., one of his first questions here. What is your list of favorite movies so far in 2020? Well, I've only seen 3, I think. I was saying this to Alexis the other day. We've only seen 3 movies so far this year, and that's because really nothing good has come out. At least in my opinion, at least shit I want to say. Jumanji came out last year. We saw that at the beginning of this year, though, so I count that as one of my 2020 movies. I enjoyed Jumanji. I thought that was a good one. Jumanji 2, that is. We saw that back in early January. I don't think we saw anything for the remainder of the month, unless I'm mistaken. We were going to see the Impractical Jokers movie. We just never had enough time, and it didn't come out of the theater that we usually go to, so we never got to see it. But we did see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I already mentioned this, but we saw that on Valentine's Day because we were going to go see... We saw Invisible Man yesterday. What was the other movie? The Island one, Fantasy Island. I heard it wasn't that good, and she wanted to see it, and it was like 2.5 hours long. I'm like, I don't know. We'll go see Sonic the Hedgehog. It's shorter. It worked with our time frame that day, and I enjoyed it. It was a good movie. And then yesterday we saw Invisible Man. That was probably the best of the 3. I liked Jumanji a lot. Sonic was probably the weakest, even though it was a fine movie, better than I thought it would be. Invisible Man I thought was very, very good. I thought the acting by the main actress was very, very good. I thought the story was fine. It's a story they've told a million times over the years, but I thought it worked well, and it was a good movie. A lot of twists, a lot of suspense, a lot of cool camera shots with, you see just a shot of an empty doorway, and, obviously there's someone standing there because it's an invisible man, but you don't know that for sure. Just very cool. I like the movie a lot, so be sure to check out Invisible Man. I think it came out last Friday. But those are the only 3 movies I've seen so far this year. I do plan on seeing the My Spy movie with Batista when I'm away, I think, in Anaheim in a couple weeks. I think there's an AMC right down the street from where my brother and I are staying. So we plan on going and seeing that maybe on like the Tuesday before we come back on like $5 Tuesday, whatever. And then I also want to see the No Time to Die movie, the all-new 007 movie that comes out in early April over like Easter weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that. I love the 007 movies, especially the recent ones. Spectre wasn't as good as Skyfall, but Spectre was still good. I love Skyfall, so I'm looking forward to No Time to Die. And I think that's about it for right now. I don't really know what else comes out after that in like May and June and July. Or I know there's Black Widow in May, but even that I'm not like overly anticipating. I'm looking forward to it because it's a Marvel movie and those are always good. But I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot of great movies on top for 2020. I said that a couple months ago, and I think John asked me about like my most anticipated movies for the year. There's really not much I'm looking forward to. To be honest with you. There's a couple good ones here and there, but nothing I'm like, oh God, I can't wait, like Endgame or Toy Story 4 or something like that. Thomas's second question: does it appear WWE has an agenda with pushing Roman Reigns possibly too much again, seeing as how Roman didn't even have to go through the Elimination Chamber? I don't really think that has to do with Roman as it does. I don't know why they did that. I think it has more to do with the fact that they have no idea what they want to do from a booking standpoint, this company, specifically in the SmackDown side, because it seemed like we were going to get Roman and Wyatt at WrestleMania. Roman would win the Elimination Chamber, and bing, bang, boom, that's how you get the match. Having him face Goldberg with no prior hype just because he just so happened to be closest to Gorilla on Friday is the dumbest thing ever. Maybe not as dumb as the Fiend pointing to the WrestleMania sign, but it's still pretty dumb. That Goldberg goes, oh, I issue an open challenge, and then Roman comes out and he gets the match at WrestleMania? What? That makes no sense. It's so dumb. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that at all. I mean, I think the match will be fun. I like the idea of Roman and Goldberg. I just don't think it, A, has to be for the championship, and B, if it is, have Roman earn it. Oh, I beat Baron Corbin 3 times. Does that really mean anything, though? What does that really mean, to be honest? And again, I like Roman. I really have no issue with him going for the championship at WrestleMania. But, like, why wouldn't you do a chamber for the men when you're doing one for the tag teams that don't need it? Like, that came completely out of nowhere. I know it would have been predictable, but you gotta do what makes sense. At least have him win some sort of number 1 contenders match or something. It was so silly. Like, even John Cena put his fucking Royal Rumble title shot on the line, like, 7 years ago against CM Punk on Raw in a number 1 contenders match. Like, I'm not advocating for that, but, like, the very least that they could do is explain why he's getting a title shot, aside from, he was closest to Gorilla, so he's getting a title shot because he walked to the ring faster than anyone else to face Goldberg at Mania. That's so dumb. So it's not a Roman problem. It's not like, they're shoving him down our throats again. I don't believe that. It's more like, it's just lazy booking. If it was anyone else, I would say the same thing. Like, if it was a dream match, I mean, I guess it kind of is for some people, Roman and Goldberg. I mean, I guess it might be the closest thing to a dream match for Goldberg in 2020. But it's not like they have prior history or whatever. It's not like we were expecting this match months out and it just makes sense to do. Not really. Like, Roman really has not been involved in the title picture at all. Yeah, he can say that he never lost the championship, and I guess that makes sense. But you should still have him win the Elimination Chamber. There's no reason to do it for the tag teams of SmackDown and not for the men. Even though it would have been predictable, at least it gives him a title shot. If it's predictable, boo-hoo, get over it. I mean, at least it's predictable for the right reasons. You can't just not do it just because it's predictable. That's ridiculous. The tag team one is not predictable, but it's completely unnecessary. So how much does that really mean, you know? At noob_n_co 1991, their first question was, were you disappointed that we didn't get Asuka versus Shayna Baszler on Raw this week? I've got a theory that the injury is a work, and WWE is protecting Asuka so they can save the feud between Asuka and Shayna for later down the road. No, it's not a work. I thought that too. I'm not going to say you're stupid for thinking that, because you're definitely not. I thought the same exact thing, and hey, maybe it was a work, but by all accounts, it's a real injury. Because they were advertising the match. I'm thinking, why would they advertise the match and then pull it at the last second? I mean, they do that a lot, but why change it? Did they think? Do you really think the WWE thought, this is a money match, let's not do it? Then they wouldn't have booked it in the first place. That's not the reason. I think the reason was that she was actually hurt. She was wearing the cast on Raw this week. And I read a report that she was injured maybe over the weekend at a house show, and they are hoping that she's going to be cleared to compete again by Sunday. And hey, maybe they're working all of us and it's a fake injury. But as far as I know, it's a real thing, and that's why they, did not do the match on Monday. And hey, it's a blessing in disguise, because they should not have done Asuka and Shayna for Shayna's first Raw match on TV. That's maybe not a dream match, but hey, they're the two greatest NXT Women's Champions of all time. That's not a match you just throw out, just throw away on Raw on free television with no prior hype, 6 days out from a pay-per-view. That makes absolutely no sense. So I'm glad it was Shayna and Kairi, and they had a decent match, but, I will say that Shayna probably should have gone over in more decisive fashion. She probably should have faced like a Liv Morgan or a Sarah Logan, someone she could just go in there and beat the shit out of for like 2 or 3 minutes and get over as a dominant monster. Not go 50-50 with Kairi Sane. I think that was a little silly, but I am glad though. Bottom line, that they didn't do Asuka and Shayna, probably because Asuka is legitimately injured, and now they can save it for another show down the road. And watch them book it next week when Asuka's clear to compete again. I would not be shocked at all. But that's a match, in my opinion, that you save for when it matters more after WrestleMania, and you can build it up as a real big deal and not throw it away on Raw for absolutely no reason. Noob, second question here. What did you think of Randy Orton RKOing Beth Phoenix? To me, that was a shocking moment. Hopefully, she'll keep playing a role in the Edge and Orton storyline. I guess we could see her again, but I don't think we will. I thought the RKO was fun. I thought the entire segment was amazing. I thought Orton was phenomenal. I thought Phoenix really played her role very well. Got to give her props to. Props to Phoenix for that. But the whole segment was great. The whole storyline has been awesome. I've seen some people say, they should main event at WrestleMania. I'm not sure if someone asked that here. I've seen a lot of that on Twitter. I do not agree with that at all. You can't always go with the best story in the main event of WrestleMania? Because, like, for example, the best story, maybe this isn't a great example. I was going to say, the tag team title match or the IC title match is the best story. Do you put that in the main event? No, not over, 2 world title matches. I guess you could, but anyway, in this case, it's not even a title match because we know Edge is winning. There's no chance Edge goes into WrestleMania, his first singles match back in almost a decade, and loses. I do not see that happening at all. And again, predictability isn't always a bad thing, but that's not a match you do in the main event. It's got to be Brock and Drew. Not Roman and Goldberg, not Edge and Orton, not even the women's matches. It's got to be Drew and Brock. Give Drew his moment, end the show at that, and have that be it. There's no real crowning of a moment if Edge and Orton have their match. It's just the no-holds-barred match, and that's it. So there's no real suspense there. I feel like people are... I don't think it's going to be the greatest match of all time, and very well it could be. But I don't know. I feel like the story is so great that people are going to set their expectations too high, and the match is only going to be good. Because Edge, they're both older. It's not the same match they would have had a dozen years ago, and there's nothing on the line. So it's not like, I can't wait for Edge to win the championship. There's nothing on the line here. So, nor should there be. There doesn't have to be. But that's not a match you do in the main event. So anyway, going back to the original segment from Raw this week, I thought it was awesome. I thought the RKO was cool. I did notice, as many other people pointed out, that Beth kicked Orton before he RKO'd her. I'm sure they'll play that into some sort of she was defending herself. 5-10 years ago, they just would have had her go in there and eat the RKO and have that be it. But I guess it's a question now of it's man-on-woman violence. Who gives a fuck? No one's really complaining about that anyway. I haven't really seen many people bring that up as an issue, thankfully. So it's not really even worth talking about, but maybe that's what their thought was behind that. We should have Beth kick Orton just in case people complain that, man and woman violence, blah, blah, blah. These are the same people that want intergender wrestling, which I don't agree with, but I think this was perfectly fine. It was, very characteristic of Orton to do that. And I thought it was a great way to end the show. I love the feud, and I'm looking forward to the match. I'm not sure if it's going to be the match of the night, but it's easily the best story going into WrestleMania right now, hands down, even including NXT. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, do you think we get a shakeup after WrestleMania? And if so, who do you think should switch shows? No, I don't, so I'm not even going to speculate. We just had one 6 months ago. I know we just had one 6 months before that in April of last year, and they did the draft in October. That was necessary, though, to reestablish the brands and who went where. We just had a draft, so... Honestly, I would wait until after, next year's Mania to do one, if not, in the summer or something. They probably will do it. I feel like they would have announced it by now, though. I know it's only early March, but usually they announce for, those type of shows to sell tickets, the draft is coming up, or the shakeup is coming up on April, blah, blah, blah. Who's going to switch those, though? Who really needs to switch shows? I feel like everyone is where they need to be right now. I feel like switching anyone else would be just overkill. So, no, I don't want a draft. I don't think we will get one. And so I'm not even going to say who should switch shows because I really don't think anyone should switch shows right now, to be honest with you. His second question, after WrestleMania, do you think they should turn Ricochet heel and pair him up with MVP? On paper, that's not a bad idea. And we talked about a couple weeks ago the idea of pairing MVP with someone as a mouthpiece. I think he could be very valuable in that role. Ricochet, it could work because Ricochet's not a great talker, but it might be one of those things where it could be one of two things. It could be one of those things where he needs a change because the guy just got buried on Raw via Riddick Moss on Monday night. So he needs a change of some sort. I don't know if a heel turn is it though. We said the same thing about Bayley, and that was the opposite end of the spectrum. She went heel, and it turned out to be a complete flop. The matches have been no good. The promos are even worse. The character development is I'm bad because I don't like you guys. It's so stupid. Her heel character is even worse than her face character. And I'm a Bayley fan. It's been sad to say. So he may not be a natural heel. It may not work, so I wouldn't try it. But then you have someone like an Io Shirai who went heel out of nowhere. No one really knew what to expect. She's been amazing as a heel. So, again, it could go one of two ways. It's worth a shot. If he's going to end up in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, I would not do it now. Like you said, after WrestleMania might be the best bet. I don't mind the idea, though. It might actually could work if they could have, Ricochet either continuing to wear the trunks or to wear, suits or something. I don't know. It may work. It could work. It may not. It may kill off any momentum the guy still has, which is none, but like he's still over to a certain extent, kind of. I don't know. Anything is better than what he's doing right now, so I'm not going to say no to that idea. His third question here, if Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns win at WrestleMania, who do you think their first feuds after WrestleMania will be with? Well, I already said for Roman, it's going to be Bray Wyatt. I can almost guarantee that. I said guaranteed it's going to be Roman beating Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and they changed plans on me, so nothing is ever guaranteed. I'm not going to put money on it, but that would seem to make the most sense. Cena's not going to be there. Goldberg won't be there. I mean, who else is going to go with the championship? Braun? Like, give me a break. We've already seen Roman and Braun a million times anyway. So yeah, I think it's going to be Roman and Bray after WrestleMania. On the Raw side, Rollins maybe? I don't know. I feel like if Rollins loses to Owens at Mania, which he probably should, then I don't know how much sense it would make to put him in the title picture right after Mania. I mean, Rollins and Drew, they've had a million matches over the past 2 years, but they've never really had a full-fledged feud. So I wouldn't mind a full-fledged feud between the two coming out of Mania. Someone said Jinder, get the fuck out of here with that shit. No, thank you. Oh, they were both in 3MB. Who gives a fuck? Does that mean they should bring up Heath Slater? I know he's a former WWE champion, but the guy's terrible. That match would be the cure for insomnia if they booked Drew McIntyre versus Jinder fucking Mahal. That's how you kill a champion on day one. That, right there. Like Rollins, his reign may have been better if he wasn't working with Baron Corbin for 3 months. That was a dumb move. So, anyway, with Drew from the Raw side, Rollins would be a much better choice than fucking Jinder Mahal. There's Andrade, if they put him in the title picture, which I doubt they will, but that's an option, I guess. Angel, I see winning the U.S. Championship, so I wouldn't say him. Who else do they have for heels on Raw? I know there's a bunch. AJ Styles would be cool. If he beats Taker, then it would make sense. I don't know if he will, but yeah, Drew and AJ would be really, really sick, actually. So yeah, I'm going to say AJ Styles. If it's not Rollins, then, or a rematch with Brock, which I would hope not, I would just have him win the belt and have that be it, not go back and forth like they did with Brock and Rollins last year. Then I think it's got to be AJ and Drew coming out of WrestleMania if AJ goes on to win at WrestleMania, beating The Undertaker. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube machine. Check out his show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. His first question was, in your opinion, what were the best 3 and worst 3 things about AEW Revolution? The best 3 things, I thought the tag team title match was the match of the night. Amazing stuff there. Great storytelling, action, drama, suspense. Everything was great. The crowd was awesome. That was my favorite thing from the show. Moxley winning the AEW World Championship. I thought him and Jericho had a very good match. Great main event. The moment of Moxley winning really kind of put it over the top as special. That was the right move to make there. Good stuff. And then Pac and Orange Cassidy was also really, really good. I thought that was an absolute blast. And then an honorable mention goes to the Sammy Guevara Darby Allin match. I thought that was awesome. So those are my 4 favorite things from the show. The worst 3 things from the pay-per-view. First and foremost, Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander. Fucking sucked. Nyla Rose has grown on me. I thought the podcast that she did with Jericho not last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, was really, really good. But her in-ring ability remains a major question mark. She's just not good. And this match proved it. Statlander I know is good. I've seen more of her matches. I know she's coming off the flu. Doesn't matter what the case is, the match was terrible. Jake Hager versus Dustin Rhodes is the opener. Very questionable. Did not really care for the match. I thought it was okay. It wasn't a bad match, but definitely not a hot opener by any means. So that was one of my least favorite parts of the show. And then Cody and MJF I'll talk more about later. It was a good match, and I'll talk more about the interference and all the smoke and mirrors and shit, and why I wasn't a fan of it. But the strap spot I thought was really dumb. So Cody took off the belt buckle, the weight belt that he wears, and he whipped MJF with it in front of the ref's face. And the ref contemplated throwing out the match until he didn't. And then he's like, oh, no, go ahead, it's fine. And then Cody whipped him again, and then he threw the weight belt into the crowd. I'm not sure how safe that is, but I thought that was really stupid. I did not like that spot at all. I thought the match was good, but I thought that made absolutely no sense. So overall, though, I loved the show. I thought it was a very good pay-per-view. Although it wasn't without its, flaws. John's second question. Paul Heyman said on Raw that top to bottom, this is the most stacked WrestleMania card in decades. Now, sure, the potential is there, but this sounded more like the company desperately trying to drum up interest with a month to go. What are your thoughts? I feel like that was more of a Paul Heyman thing. I don't know if WWE told him to say that. Paul Heyman tends to BS a lot in his promos. He'll really build up the card or Brock's opponent or whatever. A lot of the stuff he says doesn't really feel genuine, even though he's one of the best talkers they have. I don't know if he actually feels that way, but of course he's going to say that. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's WWE telling him, hey, we really want to sell people on this WrestleMania. Go out there and talk about how it's the most stacked WrestleMania of all time. And hey, maybe that is the case. But I get the feeling that it wasn't, and Paul Heyman just said that to sell WrestleMania. And the fact that this match is main eventing Mania, probably, it's going to make it mean that much more when it goes on last of this stacked card, No, it's not the most stacked WrestleMania card of all time. And the thing is, too, is that I said this to Alexis after he said that. Why would he say that when all we know so far is 3 or 4 matches on the card? We know nothing about the WrestleMania card outside of the top few matches. We know Roman and Goldberg, Cena and The Fiend, Brock and Drew for the WWE Championship, and then Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. Unless I'm missing something, I think those are the only matches confirmed so far for WrestleMania. That's crazy. So why would they say, oh, this is the most stacked card? And he even said top to bottom, like you said. That's what he said in his promo, top to bottom. There's 4 matches confirmed. If we're talking from a storyline standpoint, that makes no sense. If he's talking about what's on tap, from a booking standpoint, what he thinks is going to be added, then maybe. But even then, it's not the most stacked WrestleMania card of all time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. His next question, is WWE going to have to start running smaller buildings for Raw, SmackDown, and even the B-level pay-per-views? It seems like they're having difficulty selling out NBA-sized arenas for a lot of these shows. I don't think so. I'm not sure if WWE would, what's the right word? They don't want to come across as, oh, we're not doing well, so we would rather hide the issue by taping off sections of these arenas than scaling down and kind of admitting defeat. They're not really great at admitting defeat. So I don't see that happening. It very well could, but in the X amount of years they've been doing the shows, I don't think I've ever seen them scale down. If anything, they go up. They do the 80,000, the 90,000 seat arenas for these WrestleMania shows. I don't ever see them for even Raw and SmackDown scaling downward. Maybe for NXT if it wasn't to do well, if they were to go live every week on the road, I'm not really sure how well that would do. But for the main shows, I just don't see that happening. Because it doesn't look as good on TV as these NBA-sized arenas. And yeah, they're not selling out, but they would rather make it look like it's sold out by tarping off all the sides, because we don't see that on camera. What we see are the pictures from people that take up the shows. The viewers flipping through the channels, they don't see that shit, so they don't really care. We do, because we pay attention to that stuff. But I don't really see them ever really scaling down, because it would be kind of admitting defeat, and it doesn't look as good on TV, and that's kind of what's most important to them is appearance. So, no, I don't see that happening. It very well could happen. I just don't see it happening. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's question was, who do you see challenging for the AEW World Tag Team titles now that Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page beat the Young Bucks? I thoroughly enjoyed that match, but were the kickouts excessive? So kind of a two-parter here. First, with the World Tag Team title question. Who could challenge them next? I guess they could get some random team in there like Santana and Ortiz or something like that. They've already beaten the Lucha Bros. I think they've already beaten Best Friends, I want to say, on an episode of Dynamite. They've already beaten a bunch of teams, more teams than you would think. I could see them maybe doing like Cody and Dustin, but it doesn't really make sense right now because Cody's doing his own thing with MJF, and I think Dustin is actually starting a new team with QT Marshall. Why? I have no idea. That makes no sense. I don't care. It's just stupid. But I don't really have any interest in seeing that match. What I would assume is going to happen is that the feud will continue with the Bucks and Omega and Page, and they'll do exactly what WWE just did. Not to say they're copying WWE, but it just makes sense, in my opinion, to have the match at the pay-per-view, the champions retain, and then the Bucks will beat them for the belts on an upcoming episode of Dynamite. You don't have to wait until Double or Nothing, although I wouldn't complain because that first match was so good. I do see them doing the rematch on Dynamite one of these weeks. So, yeah, I don't really see them. I guess they could have a one-off match with, like, they've already beaten SCU a bunch of times, too. So, who else even really is there? Santana and Ortiz is one option. Like the Hybrid 2, I don't see getting a title shot. I'm not really sure who else I'm sure there's more teams that I'm not thinking of. Jurassic Express, maybe, although they're not really at that level yet where they've earned a tag team title opportunity. I would say probably Santana and Ortiz, but I don't think they'll drop the belts until they lose into the Young Bucks soon. The second part of your question with the match, I thought it was amazing. The only nitpick of the match is I agree. The kickouts weren't that excessive. The only thing that bothered me, as RJ pointed out to me over text, was that Page, he did the buckshot lariat combo with Omega, okay, which has been their tag team finisher since they started teaming together. And Matt Jackson kicks out, okay. They did the Canadian Destroyer. I don't think he kicked out. I think Nick Jackson broke it up or vice versa. So that was a little like, I wouldn't have done the move. I mean, that's a whole other issue that I've talked about a lot here on the show. I fucking hate when people bastardize the Canadian Destroyer. It's so annoying to me. But that's been an issue forever. So they do the buckshot lariat combo, the one-winged angel, the chicken wing, everything else, and it's a single buckshot lariat that puts Matt Jackson down for the loss to give Page and Omega the victory. Just one buckshot lariat. Not a combo, not a bullet shot, not a fucking gunshot to the head. It was one buckshot lariat. That was a little like, okay, like why don't they just do that before? Why not hit him with the buckshot lariat? He kicks out, okay. Then you do the combo, and that's it. It seemed like ass-backwards booking, but if that's my biggest issue with the match overall, I'd say it was a pretty good day at the office. It was an amazing match. I don't know if I would go so far as to say it was the greatest tag team match I've ever seen. I saw a lot of people saying that. I saw Dave Meltzer say that, so many other people. Again, I don't know if I would go that far, but it was a very, very, very good match. Maybe my favorite AEW match to date, and they've had a lot of good ones, but that one might take the cake in addition to the Iron Man match from a couple days before on Dynamite with Pac and Omega. At Scarlet One, their, I think, first and only question here today was best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars number 20, so from last week. Last week's Dynamite Go Home show I thought was great. Like, they've really been hitting their stride of Dynamite in the last couple of weeks. The last 3 episodes have probably been the best they've ever done. And the cool thing is, I'm excited for tonight too, because it's the post-pay-per-view episode. We know we're getting Lance Archer. We know we're getting, I think it was announced Moxley and Darby Allin versus Jericho and Sammy Guevara, which is very cool. So I'm looking forward to the show. It should be awesome. But yeah, loved Omega and Pac, like I just said. I thought that was the best part of anything on Wednesday night by far. The way into the end was well done. The sit-down interview with Jim Ross, the Young Bucks, Omega, and Page was great from Dynamite. From NXT, I really liked the Ciampa-Austin Theory match. Far from a barn burner, but I thought Theory looked good in defeat. It was a good match. Cameron Grimes versus Dominik Dijakovic, another very good match in the opener of NXT. The worst from each show, nothing really worst, nothing really bad from Dynamite, although I thought the 4-way women's match, it was decent, but I didn't really care about it, between Hikaru Shida, Big Swole, Takazawa, and Shayna. I always mispronounce it because I think Shayna Baszler, but I'm pretty sure it's Shayna. Then the other stuff from NXT, again, no real worst, but like Mia Yim and Xia Li, with Xia Li winning off the distraction roll-up, that was weak. Forgotten Sons versus Grizzled Young Veterans. Decent match. The match was okay, and I love the Grizzled Young Vets, but the Forgotten Sons, even as baby faces, do absolutely nothing for me. I could not give two shits about that, that tag team. So I thought NXT was really weak last week, but I thought Dynamite knocked it out of the park. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, your thoughts on AEW steel cage structure. I think it's cool, and I love the fact that with their steel cage matches, you can't win it by escaping the cage. I think that's the dumbest stipulation, I really do. Not just going over the top, but going through the fucking door. Are you kidding me? That's so dumb. They tried to do that in the Roman Baron Corbin match last week, and I was like, ugh. It's so annoying. I really hope they don't do that on NXT tonight, because we have another 2 steel cage matches tonight. If you're not steel caged out by this point, between Cody and Wardlow 2 weeks ago, we had Corbin and Reigns last week, and this week we have 2 steel cage matches in NXT, Tegan Nox versus Dakota Kai, and for some odd reason, Velveteen Dream versus Roderick Strong. That's so silly. But yeah, I do like the structure. I like the rules of the match. It's more traditional. And yeah, I thought the match was great from 2 weeks ago between Cody and Wardlow. His second question, who do you think will face off in AEW's War Games? Well, they're not calling it War Games. It is, I don't even think it's called Blood and Guts. I think that's the name of the show, which is dumb, but they're calling the show Blood and Guts. I think the name of the match is The Match Beyond. I think it's what it's being advertised as. I saw some accounts say, oh, the Elite has challenged the Inner Circle to a War Games match or the match beyond, blah, blah, blah. I have not seen that officially confirmed anywhere, though I do assume that will be the match. Because Omega and Page and the Bucks are already feuding anyway, so it would make sense for them to have to coexist. Well, first of all, I don't agree with doing a War Games match out of nowhere on like 2 or 3 weeks build. I think that's stupid. I would save it for when it matters, for when it really means something. It doesn't mean anything in this case. But if they're going to do it, which they are, I assume it's the Bucks, Omega, and Page versus Santana, Ortiz. I guess you could get Jake Hager in there too, maybe Jericho, and Sammy Guevara. I don't know. I'm not really sure who else you put in there. Maybe you could do like Moxley, and I don't really see Moxley teaming up with anyone. I don't know. I'm not really sure what you do. But I am interested to see what they do. It would make sense if it was Elite versus Inner Circle. I was thinking that from day one, why they hadn't done a multi-team match between those guys yet, a multi-man tag team match, whatever. But I do see that happening at some point, and I think War Games would make the most sense. I'm not really sure who you put on what team, though. Like, it would be weird to have Cody on Team Elite when he's not feuding with anyone in the Inner Circle right now, and he hasn't for months. He's currently focused on MJF, so I'm not really sure how it's going to shake out, but I am interested to see what they do with it. His third question, do you think that AEW should introduce a mid-card championship? Absolutely. Their roster is growing. They have a great, from what I would think, a great mid-card crop of talent there with Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager, Dustin Rhodes, and a number of others. They need some sort of mid-card championship now that they have Lance Archer coming in, Brian Cage at some point, possibly Jeff Cobb, possibly Harper, Matt Hardy, if he even wrestles. I would be totally fine in Matt Hardy not wrestling, doing more of a character, woken leader of Exalted, the Exalted One as the leader of the Dark Order. But anyway, I think that title would be perfect for guys like that. And Luchasaurus, Christopher Daniels, the people that aren't currently fighting for the tag titles. So, I do think they could really benefit from mid-card championship. Cody has said before they would introduce a title that is completely new, something completely different, which it kind of scares me a little bit because, like, Impact tried that, like, a completely innovative championship where the championship is decided by rounds. That was one of the dumbest concepts of all time. It was so stupid. I'm actually kind of shocked it lasted as long as it did at almost 2 years, a year and a half. It was really dumb. So I really hope they can just do away with that altogether. They don't do that nonsense. They did away with it in Impact, but a couple of years ago, but I do not want to see anything like that in AEW. Just a traditional mid-card championship. That's all you need. At E13A, who was at Revolution on Saturday, their first question was, should Dustin Rhodes versus Jake Hager have been the opening match for AEW Revolution? I personally did not like it, but I also wonder if Hager's debut would have had the same energy from the crowd in any other spot. It's so funny you mentioned that because I'm thinking the exact same thing when I was watching that match. I'm thinking this is such a bizarre opener, but then I'm like, would the crowd care any more or any less? Probably less. If it was anywhere else on the card, I would have switched Guevara and Allen. I would have put that in the opener and then put Hager and Dustin Rhodes at number 2. Dustin Rhodes and Jake Hager was never going to be a great match. Let's put it that way. They were in the opener when the crowd was at their hottest, and they still didn't really care. I mean, they were into it, but the match, for, to put it lightly, did not light the world on fire. So I would have put it at the second match spot. I think that would have been perfect as a quick filler. Crowd would have been dead coming off the Guevara-Allen match anyway. Perfect. I mean, actually, the tag team title match came after the Guevara-Allen match, and they succeeded. They exceeded the crowd limit, like their energy for Guevara and Allen. So it would have been possible, but yeah, I would have put that on second. I did not like the Rhodes and Hager match going on first. I mean, the match was all right, but there was no reason for them to put that on first. Maybe, get it out of the way, but, I don't know, put it on the kickoff show in that case. Anyway, his second question here. What do you know about alcoholic character arcs in wrestling? Example, Last Call, Scott Hall, Road Warrior Hawk in WWF/WWE in 98. Examples, of that. And what separates Hangman Adam Page from them? There's something about Page's character that lets him look like a star compared to the other examples. So I'm not overly really familiar with the alcoholic characters. I know there have been some, like you said, the Scott Hall stuff, the Hawk stuff. I know they've done it before. I think the Scott Hall stuff happened in WCW. I know of it. I'm not overly familiar with it to the point where I can, criticize it. from what I know, they weren't very popular storylines. They were very dumb, playing off real issues. I'm not a big fan of alcoholic storylines. At least I'm not going off of that. That was a different time. They were doing like domestic abuse angles too at that point. So it's a totally different time in wrestling and in the world. I'm not a big fan of it. But in this case, it's not like painting alcoholics out to be a certain way. Like, oh, they're idiots or like they're beating their wives or something. Like, people are getting behind Hangman. Like, they're not sending the message that drinking is cool. They're getting behind Hangman because they see that he's down on his luck, that he needs a bit of a boost. And he's been motivated since he started drinking, and maybe he'll stop drinking when he, wins more matches or he finds success. I mean, he already has. He's one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, but I don't know. I feel like turning him heel might send, not that it would be this, the wrong thing to do. It just kind of makes sense. But now that he's so over, I would take the story arc in a different direction, as opposed to him turning on Omega because he's a drunk now and he's angry. No, I would twist it in a way where like he's down on his luck, and people want to rally behind him because they want to see him succeed. Like any other alcoholic ever. Most people will get behind an alcoholic because they want to see them get over their issues, go to rehab, whatever, and be better. They're not like, be an asshole or like embrace your inner asshole. Like no one ever really says that as far as from what I've seen, depending on, who you associate yourself with. But yeah, I would like to see them take it in a different direction because, yeah, the original plan seemed to be to turn him heel on Omega. I don't really want to see that right now. Maybe not right now, maybe in a couple months, but like, I don't know. He's very over right now. I would push him as a big babyface. The babyface he probably should have been when he went for the World Championship 6 months ago. He has way more fanfare now than he did at that point, so it's been cool to see. His next question was AEW Revolution an off night for Cody? The MJF match felt overbooked, but not in a fun way, like how other AEW Cody matches have gotten away with. Not to mention the weird downstate performance and the neck tattoo. The neck tattoo, excuse me. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was definitely an off night for Cody. The match was good. It was pretty good. I thought it had way too many smoke and mirrors. And yeah, every Cody match, for lack of a better term, because I know that was his old entrance music in WWE, is filled with smoke and mirrors, interference, shenanigans. I get it. But it felt like this one had more of that than any of the other matches, more than the Cody match or even the Shawn Spears match. It was even worse here. Like, they incorporated the belt. You saw Brandy Rhodes, Arn Anderson, Wardlow. It's like, Jesus Christ, the brass ring factored into the finish, which didn't bother me. It's heel heat, whatever. But, like, all the interference and all the other bullshit, I wasn't a big fan of that. So, the match was not as good as I thought it could be. Man, I got to tell you. First of all, the neck tattoo looks terrible. It's his body. He can do whatever the hell he wants, and that's all I'll say on it. It just looks fucking bad. And that's a terrible place for it, too. I haven't really seen many people tattoo their own brand on their body. I know he said, I represent a lot of brands and my own is a part of it. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little odd to me. Like, I don't know if I would never tattoo like, GSM on my knuckles or something. Like, that seems a little egotistical. But anyway, that's not even the issue. I mean, that's his body. He can do whatever the hell he wants. I won't say anything more on that. And Brandy Rhodes hates it, so thankfully she has good taste. But the downstate performance, oh my God, it sucked. I'm sorry, and I love downstate, I do. I love the music they do for The Miz, Zack Ryder, the old songs they did for, I think they still do Dolph Ziggler's theme. The first thing they did for him I liked, the Alex Riley theme I love, the Cody theme I love. The live performance, which I was excited for, absolutely sucked. I mean, it's all subjective, but like that lead singer was not good. And people are bringing up, maybe he had an off night too, and maybe his voice was shot or whatever, and hey, maybe it was. Maybe they just don't sound as good live. Maybe that's why they don't tour. Maybe they do, and I just didn't know it, but I would never see a downstate concert. That's what they're going to sound like. That was a piss-poor performance, and it just, again, cool to hear the song, but like the crowd wasn't like, ooh, like, that was amazing. It paled in comparison to the Jericho entrance. Let's put it that way. Let's see. He's got a couple more questions here. I'm sure you've seen this argument before, but for discussion's sake, what's the difference between WWE giving Goldberg 2 Universal title reigns and AEW making Chris Jericho its first world champion? Well, I just got done talking about this at the start of the show. Yeah, he's just about as old as Goldberg is, but Jericho is doing the best work of his career right now, cutting great promos, great matches, the most entertaining thing on the show. Is Goldberg the most entertaining thing in all of WWE right now? Is he cutting great promos? Is he having great matches? The answer is no, and let me think about it now. I like Goldberg, I do. And he is over. I mean, he's Goldberg, but he's not a guy that you should continue to put the top title on. I got it a couple years ago. I mean, it bothered me then. This just is way worse because The Fiend really had something going. Owens was booked to look like a complete idiot for that entire title reign. So I'm not really surprised that he dropped it in 30 seconds. The Fiend, they put a lot more effort into as like a monster dominant heel, and he lost in 2.5 minutes. That was ridiculous. So there's a big difference there too. Jericho's not going in there and beating people in 2 minutes. That's not his character anyway, but he had a great match with Cody. He had a very good match with Adam Page. The matches on TV with Scorpio Sky and Jungle Boy were also... The Darby Allin match was great, where Darby Allin really felt like he gained something in defeat. Kind of helped get Scorpio Sky over a little bit on his own there for a little while. Jungle Boy, same thing. Jurassic Express on the whole. The entire Inner Circle has been great for him. I mean, the promos, the video packages alone have been amazing. So, yeah, I got it. It's not even close. The only thing they have in common is their age. Jericho's 49, Goldberg's 52. That's about it. Everything else, it's not even close. So there's a big difference there. Anyway, his last question. I was only going to ask AEW-related questions, but then I saw that Elimination Chamber is this Sunday, and I had completely forgotten about it. Anyway, I looked over the card, and all I can ask is this. Why is Lucha House Party still a thing? Or is it still a thing, or Lucha House Party is still a thing, ? Yes, it is, shockingly. They're never on the show. But they will be a part of that Elimination Chamber match this Sunday for the SmackDown Tag Team titles, and the Revival will not be, which makes absolutely no sense. I like the Lucha House Party, but why would you put... I mean, I know the Revival are leaving, and that's probably why. But they're not leaving, I would think, for a couple more months. So why would you put them... Why would you put the Lucha House Party, who are on TV even less than the Revival... I don't think I've seen them win one televised match on SmackDown in the last 6 months, if not longer. Why would you put them in that match and not the Revival? I mean, they've been on TV way more recently. They don't even have to win. You could eliminate them in 2 minutes. But to not have them in there, but to have the Lucha House Party is just, I can't even believe. I mean, I can believe it because it's WWE and they like to spite people, but I just thought that was so silly. Anyway, final 3 questions here from @TimeBombZone from Twitter. If the Revival leave WWE, speaking of which, would you like to see a Revival versus Briscoes match before they sign with AEW? Well, we don't know they're going there, but it seems pretty likely. Yeah, a Revival Briscoes match would be great. I would love to see the Revival go everywhere, face every top tag team before they sign somewhere permanently. So I want to see them in NWA first of all, if only for a one-shot facing... I think the Rock and Roll Express would be great. Not that the match would be amazing, but I think for them that would be like a dream match. So put them up against the Rock and Roll Express. Put them in Ring of Honor against the Briscoes, and there's no other teams there I would really have them face. But the Briscoes would be great. New Japan, you can have them face the Guerrillas of Destiny. Impact, you can have them face the North. And then in AEW, they can face the Young Bucks, Santana and Ortiz, SCU, the Lucha Bros, a lot of great matches to be had there. Like I said a couple weeks ago, maybe not on this show, maybe on Wrestle Rant Radio. Now, I think it was actually my SmackDown review on YouTube a couple weeks ago. I don't know if they would be treated that much better in AEW than they would be in WWE. Just because there's so many tag teams, and a lot of tag teams have gotten lost in the shuffle. The Lucha Bros feel like complete afterthoughts right now. Their role on the pay-per-view on Saturday was interfering in a Pac Orange Cassidy match. That was so random. They do not feel like stars at all anymore. So don't get your hopes up for the Revival. They could be booked to look like the biggest stars in that division, or they could fall by the wayside like a lot of the other teams have, like the Hybrid 2, you know? So we'll wait and see. But to answer your question, yes, I would love to see Revival versus Briscoes in Ring of Honor before they very likely go to AEW sooner rather than later. His second question, with Lance Archer coming to AEW, who would you like for him to face, or rather feud with in AEW? Jon Moxley seems to be a logical fit, considering that Moxley beat him for the IWGP United States Championship that he actually still holds. Moxley, that is. He beat him for that championship. Moxley did about a month or two ago. I think it was at Wrestle Kingdom, actually. So, yeah, they have history there. I don't know if I would have Archer debut and attack Moxley. I mean, it would be cool, but do you have Archer lose his first match in the company? Like, I don't know. It would be a weird spot for him to be in because he's probably not taking that title off of Moxley anytime soon. But if it's not Moxley, then Darby Allin would be cool. I think that size dynamic there with Darby and Lance Archer would be nice. And Darby's been winning. He's been winning more matches lately, so I think he could take a loss. I'm not really sure who else. Him and Luchasaurus at some point would be really, really cool. You know, big man versus big man. There's a lot of options, and I'm looking forward to Lance Archer in AEW. The guy is great from what I've seen, and he brings another big man aspect, another big guy to the company, which they don't desperately need, but they need more agile big men on the roster, and he fits that mold to perfection. Final question of the day, also from @TimeBombZone from Twitter. How long do you see The Miz and John Morrison staying a team for, and who turns? I mean, I wouldn't break them up anytime soon. The thought crossed my mind a couple days ago, like, shit, are they being put in the chamber because they're going to have them drop the belts as soon as Sunday and then break them up and have them face each other at WrestleMania? I mean, not that that would be the worst thing, but they just reunited. Like, literally just reunited. Of the two, I think both guys are better as heels. I think people would be more willing to cheer Morrison. I mean, Miz was actually pretty over as a babyface up until they fucked up his booking. But Miz just went heel. I don't know if I would turn him back into a babyface anytime soon. You know, a heel John Morrison in WWE would be cool too, as we're seeing currently. But, yeah, John Morrison, like they were the first time, might be better off as the babyface just because people may want to cheer him anyway. I'm not sure if he would do as well as a heel in WWE as he did in other promotions like Impact and Lucha and elsewhere. AAA, whatever. But, yeah, I see them staying a team for maybe the better part of the year. I mean, again, they could drop the belts on Sunday and then break up, you know, in time for WrestleMania, which would be dumb. But that would be like WrestleMania 25 all over again. But not that they faced each other at WrestleMania 25. They had the tag team title match, I think, with like Primo and Epico, which they could rekindle that. Can they rekindle that rivalry? No, it wasn't Primo and Epico. It was Carlito and Primo. And Carlito's not in the company anymore. Anyway, I see them staying a team for a little while. I wouldn't break them up just yet. And who turns? I would say probably John Morrison goes face, but it could go either way. And that does it, guys, for episode 327 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in and sending in your questions. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your week. Very excited for Dynamite tonight. I'll be talking all about it tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio, in addition to my review of AEW Revolution and my preview and predictions for WWE Elimination Chamber on Sunday. So a stacked show for WrestleRant Radio tomorrow. Tune in and all the popular podcast platforms. And we'll be right back here next Wednesday. I should mention this, actually. So obviously a new hashtag next Wednesday. But the week after that, I will be away. I'll be in California. And I don't want to record hashtag a day later, because I'm going to be gone from Friday the 13th through Wednesday the 18th, like late Wednesday. So I don't want to record it on Thursday. I would love to record it in advance and put it up on Wednesday if I have time before we go to the airport and shit to go home. So what I'm going to try to do, like, we got over 2 pages worth of questions today. If we have the same amount of, like, around the same type of questions, the same amount of questions for next week, I'll split it into 2. If we don't have enough, then I won't be able to do it. But send in as many questions as you can. Do not be afraid. I know usually I'm like, oh, there's a lot of questions, but like for this coming week, definitely do so, because I'm probably going to split the questions up into 2 separate episodes and record it next week. So we can get 2 episodes out of it, so I could put up the second episode on the following Wednesday when I'm away, as opposed to waiting like until Thursday or Friday. I don't like doing that most of the time. So, yeah, definitely try to do that. Anything that's timely with, like, I don't know, something that's coming off with a pay-per-view, I'll answer. But if it's like an evergreen question, like, oh, your favorite WrestleMania matches, for example, then, yeah, I'll probably answer the following week. But yeah, so just a heads up for next week. Be sure to send in as many questions as you can, because I'll probably try to break it up into 2 separate episodes between next week and the week after that while I'm away. I'll probably still record Wrestle Rant Radio when I get back. I don't think I'll do an early episode of that. I'll probably just do it when I get back, because I'll be back on that Thursday. But we will soon see. Nonetheless, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.